everyone, it is Susie, and I do have the tutorial ready now for this. I'm just going to kind of show you the finished end of it here, and let's just get on with the tutorial. Alright, this is the size of my bag that I used. It's a 12 by 15. And if I count this little lip up here, it's 15.5. So that is the size of the bag that I have used. Now I picked these up at a sale, gosh, a year, 2 years ago. So I am going to look on Amazon and see if I can find this size bag. And I will put it in my favorites list and have it linked there if I can find them. So, also, I use the Tim Holtz spray stain in the walnut. That is what else. And I have this already on my favorites list on Amazon. But I always use the vintage photo or the walnut. But for that grungy bag, I used the walnut. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I actually folded the bag. And it's just however big, really, that you want, or how long you want your journal to be. So if you want your journal to be like an 8, then get your ruler and just have, you know, the 8 and make that your fold. If you want your journal to be a 9, you know, just kind of get your ruler placed up here, have the length of your journal that you want it to be, and make your fold. So I'm going to do, I think, 8.5. I think I had 8 3/4 on the other one. I can't remember, and it's already gone to its new home, so I'm going to fold this up and make it right at the 8.5 mark. And then that will give me what I pocket and the length that I want. Okay, so then the next thing that you want to do, you don't want to really glue it down anywhere just yet or anything. Just flip it over and then take it and just fold it in half. And I fold it in half at the lip, kinda. That's what I do. Okay, and I just took it and folded it in half. Okay, and then you can kind of the same way, whatever you want the width of your journal to be, you can just kind of, I'm going to do the ruler upside down, because if I wanted a 5, then I'm just going to take it and kind of fold this in. A 6 would be more. Nope, I think I went about 5.5 because I had a little bit bigger lip. Let's go 5 1/4. I'm going to go 5 1/4. And what it does is it causes you to have that itty bitty pocket I had, and that I had cut those time cards down. So there is that. And then same way here, I did it so I'm going to kind of just take it and give me a fold right there. So then that is basically the journal, and then you can kind of stitch down your or glue down your pockets and such. Okay, and then when you fold it, just make sure you're kind of even before you glue it down. So then there is your pocket to the outside, and your pocket to the outside, and then those little bitty slender pockets on the inside. Now if you wanted to, you could easily just kind of fold it in and glue it down if you don't like that ridge. Of course, that'll change a little bit on your measurements. You'd have to do this first before you started folding. But you could just, you know, get rid of that and have it stitched down. Because, see, it changed my measurements then. Oh, it didn't too bad. So it's just kind of, you know, whatever your liking is. I believe I left it out on my last one. I didn't close it in. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. So what I did is the other one, I believe I sprayed it after I had it together. But this one, I'm actually going to spray it before I ever close it up. And if you're going to spray this in your craft room, you definitely want to cover a wide surface, because this spray goes a little bit of everywhere. It makes a pretty big mess. Now I just use deli sheets. I use these 12 by 12 or 12 by 10 3/4 deli sheets. I also have that already listed on the Amazon. I try to keep everything that I use on my Amazon list, because I know that when I'm looking for something, if somebody can just point me right to it, it helps a bunch. So I do have these listed. I have the 2 cheapest that you can find in this size is what I have listed on my Amazon link. But I use these all the time. I use them for all my projects because they're cheap. And I can just throw them away, and I don't know. They're just nicer to me to use. So I've covered my whole surface here. And I'm just going to start spraying. And you just want to kind of, I just sprayed it in spots. I didn't try to glob it everywhere. I just gave it a, and then you'll want to let it kind of dry is what you'll want to do. That looks kind of funny in the camera. It looks like I've missed a lot of spots, but kind of get your top, and I want a little bit of variance in there. Okay, so I'm going to quit there, but I'm going to let this dry, flip it, and then spray the other side. Okay, so I have my bag all sprayed, and doesn't it look nice and grungy? Yeah, I like that. So, I'm going to kind of show you. I got all my papers printed out that I needed, and everything that I print usually is on coffee dyed or tea stained paper. I have been tea staining my paper lately instead of coffee dyeing, because I like the more brown texture it gives the color than the coffee does. So I've kind of just really been printing on tea dyed, a really dark tea dye. I really put a lot of tea bags in it, and every once in a while I'll just put a little dab of coffee as well, but I want to keep that nice color of the tea, so I don't put too much coffee in it. If I'm trying to get the paper a little deeper grunge color, I will add a little bit of coffee. Here are the papers. I had to make some more. I was out. But these are those papers that I told you Sagita had a tutorial for, and I will put that tutorial in the link. This is what it looks like. This one here, these I have ironed. But this one here, I have just let air dry. And I was going to kind of show you what it looks like. Now, you have to be careful because the bags will, because tea kind of just has a stickiness to it. Sometimes it will try to stick to the paper. But on the grunge, you don't care anyway. But this is kind of how it comes out. Now, I did find it a little easier the second time around to do this. In Sagita's tutorial, she has you just put it in the pan like you always would, or in the dish, or whatever it is you use of your tea or coffee, and then crumble it and put it on the thing. I found it a little easier. That's the way I did it the first time. But I did find it a little easier if I took my copy paper, and this is just a Walmart, whatever that is, that Pen and Pal gear, the cheapest paper you can get. That's what this copy paper is, and I think it's either, is it 24 pound or 20 pound? Anyway, it's just the cheap stuff from Walmart. And I found that if I took it and I crumbled it first, and just kind of already got these kind of veins started in it, those are going to be like the veins, they'll show out. If I crumpled it first and then kind of put it in my solution there, and then pull it out, and then you have to be very careful because it's pretty, you know, tender once you pull it out. Then I just take it and I just crumble it a little bit like that and just set it up and let it air dry. But I found that it was just easier to crumple the paper first and then put it in the solution and then just kind of take it and, you know, put that crumple back in there and set it over and let it air dry. It just worked out easier because I had a lot of rips and tears really bad on my first batch that I did in that grungy journal. Just because of that, because it's just so delicate when it comes out of that water, it just wants to rip everywhere. So that's just a little helpful hint that I found to be helpful to me. So, but I will put Sagita's link in the description box so that you can watch her tutorial on how she did that. Now I did, like I said, I did iron mine. I like mine to lay a little flatter. I don't want it quite as, you know, I don't want to put it in the book like this. I want mine to be a lot flatter. So I did iron mine. And I do iron all my coffee or tea stained papers. I just air dry them. I used to set at the oven and bake them, but I found they're just as noisy, that crinkly's still there, and a whole lot less time consuming if you just let them air dry. So that's just what I found to be helpful for me. Okay, so I got my papers, and these are the Vintage by Me. There is not a name on the ones that I picked. I think they're all grungy, a grungy kit. So there's not a particular name to the group that I purchased and downloaded. These are going to be a little different, maybe even from the ones that I put in the book. I know this one is the same. That one will be the same, but I may have a couple, like this one I think is different. Because I did purchase a few sets of these when I purchased the first batch. So I'm going to use a few different papers maybe. I did this in that one as well, and these are also from Vintage by Me. And I did just print them back to back. I just put a different one on the back than I did the front. So those are also going to be in the book, and they were in the other book as well. Okay, so that's kind of, you need your papers. Of course, you need a few just plain papers as well. And then some tea stain tags. Now these are just those manila shipping tags, and I have stained them, and that's what I use to go in the front of the book and the back of the book in that little lip. Alrighty, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my bag folded up like so. I'm going to go ahead and stitch around it because that is what I did the first time. I do believe I stitched around it. Oh, and a time card. I did use a time card, and I don't think I have a time card sitting here, and I'll have to stain one as well. But all I did was take one of the long time cards, and you could actually use anything. If you've got some of these vintage, even some of these little vintage, oh gosh, flashcards. You could almost cut one of them in half because these pockets are so slender, and just collage over them and use them if you wanted to, or just make your own little long tags. But that's all that was I had a vintage time card, and I cut it in half, and that's what I put in the little pocket. So you'll want that. And then of course if you want a bag or anything in there as well, you'll want to get that together. So anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get this bag stitched. Then we'll start tearing some of these papers and get the book ready. Alrighty? Okay, so I have stitched around my bag, and I've got these now where this is just held down because of the stitching. And what I am going to do is, in order to make these to a pocket going this way, I'm going to take, because I have stitched around the bag, I'm going to take it and I'm actually going to do a little double stitching here and here, here and here. I know that when you use some of that distress ink, sometimes it makes your glue a little harder to hold. But you can get it to hold. You can staple it. It's just a junky journal anyway. You can staple it, or you could sew it down like I'm going to. But I'm going to take and I'm just going to do a little double stitching there and get that made for a pocket. Okay, so I got my little pockets stitched down, and my book is ready, or the cover's ready. So what I've done is I went ahead and I got some of the pages tore up. And I'm going to kind of show you. I don't get real worried about what they look like tore. And I'm not worried about these pieces that were the really crumpled ones. I don't worry about the tears in them either. So they're going to be covered with the paper. This one has kind of a big tear in it. But they're going to be covered by the paper anyway. Let's see. I just had 3 pieces of this pattern paper there. And what I've done is, because my book, the size of my book, I always just grab this one. This is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I kind of lay the one in there to see how it's going to fit with the journal when I'm just going to rip the pages. And I see that it just has a little bit of overhang, not too much, and it does fit up and down, you know, the lengthwise. So I know that I only have to tear a little off. It just depends on how much you want tore off with your pages. So I have of course this is my Arteza. This is that triangular ruler. I still do like this triangular ruler. I will put the link to Arteza in the description box. So here's kind of my just my paper here, and I am going to tear a little bit off the top here, and I'm going to tear a little bit off the bottom here. And I just rip it off, and I just want it to look ripped and, you know, not perfect. So, okay, and then, I mean, it's going to fit in there just fine. So that is just some of the pages here of the tea-dyed paper. And them I will just use as pages by themselves. Okay, so I've got a couple of them, and I've just tore different sizes. You can kind of tell the difference in the size here. I've just made all different kinds of sizes. So there'll be some pages, or I'm not sure how many pages this book will have. This is the way I do the journal. I'll just kind of start getting my insert made and go from there. So on the crumpled pieces of paper, like I said, I'm not worried about the tears. Those don't bother me in the least. I'm going to keep the length because I know that the length was fine. And I'm just going to tear down my sides, and I just kind of crumple and rip the tops. I don't want to tear too much this way because I don't want to take too much off. I do want some of that height. And the crumpled pages are just some good pages to do that. So I've just kind of ripped. And these here, because of they're just so brittle from all that folding, I just hand tore these. So I just kind of take it and I just will hand tear. Hand tear them up. And then what I do is I just take the tops and I just kind of rough them up. Because like I said, I want that height on these pages. So I'm just going to kind of rough up the tops, just like so. Just so that they don't look straight and they don't look perfect. I want them to be a little rough. Then also, if you want more grunge than what you see here, I've got, this is Pot and Soil. I just use the archival ink. And this is the Pot and Soil. And I just take it and just run a little bit of that over it so that it catches some of those, I call them veins. And see how much more grunged it looks even than what it did copy dyed. and I can run it across the edges. I'm not going to worry too much about getting the insides because the paper is going to cover it. My other paper is. So, you know, if I'm going to put the paper on the inside, then I'll grab an outside. And I know that I will probably put a page right here to cover this tear, or to hold that tear together. And just take I might grab some of the bottom and a little bit of the edge, and then I'll grab the back side. But it just adds a little bit more of grunge to the paper. So I will do the rest of that off camera. And I just kind of wanted to show you that part of it. And then of course my pages like this, you can run your ink if you want it really grunge. Just run it along your, because all I have done is just tore these pages so that they look just kind of rough. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of grunge to those. And then my plain papers that I had, I will do the same thing. Just going to kind of put a little grunge on the edges of them. So I've added just a little bit of extra grunge there. And in this one, I'm going to actually add a windowed envelope. I did use a little, I believe it was a 7x5 damask bag in the other, and just sprayed it with the, distress ink. But this one here, I think, and I've got them, I'm working on getting them dried right now. I'll kind of show you. I always keep that on deli paper. This one's still wet. But this is my time card I told you. And it was just a vintage. This is a vintage time card. And I have just cut it in half. And that's what makes those long little tags. And I've sprayed the back of it, and you can kind of see where some of it came and seeped through on the front, which is great. But I did take my potting soil distress ink, and I went around the edges, and then I've just sprayed that walnut stain on there. Here is going to be my envelope, and it's working on drying. Instead of a bag, I'm just going to use the envelope this time. And I'll kind of just give it a little more grunge here. It was just lightly tea dyed. It wasn't a heavy tea dyed. I tried to tea dye a bunch of these. Oh, I don't know. It's been several months ago, so I would just have some on hand. And I am actually going to glue these flaps in so that when they're in, they're just pockets. I just want them as pockets. I don't want the flap, you know, showing. I just want that to be used as pockets. So I'm just grunging it up a little bit more. You know, if you don't want grunge all over your hands, you probably ought to have gloves on. I wear gloves all the time when I'm tea staining. I don't usually tea stain without my gloves on, because I don't want that all over my hands. But this here, I'm going to add a little extra to that flap that didn't get it, so that it just doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Okay, so I think I'm going to try to get around that window a little bit. And I want to rough up the window maybe, just a hair. So I think that's probably good. And I'm going to try to rough up that window a little. I don't want that so perfect. So maybe a little. Just grab something you've got. This is a file, and I'm just grabbing it to kind of, just something to give that a roughness to it. Okay. Alright, I think that's probably pretty good. Alright, so that's just going to rough that window up. Let's grab some Fabri-Tac here and kind of stick that flap down. Now, Fabri-Tac is probably one of the better glues to put on that distress cover. Because like I said, sometimes it has a hard time getting things to stick to it. Okay, so there's that. And that's going to be my pocket. And whether I go this way and have that to the inner side of the, or to the outer, I don't know yet. But anyway, there will be that. Of course, here is my it's still a little bit wet. The stain is still a little wet on that, so I'll probably just let it sit over and dry just a little bit more. But I do have my pieces already tore, and I wanted a little bit of an image, and this one here I'll probably have to rip it just a little bit more. Same way here, it looks like I'm going to have to rip it just a little bit more. But this here I will cut so that I can get really close, and then I'll just kind of rough up the edges instead of tearing it. So, but those are the two that's going to go on my little strips here once I get these dry. So I'm going to set that over and let that finish drying. Okay, so I save every scrap on this that I cut. So let's go with this. Okay, so okay. And I think I'm going to just make that look a little more tore. Isn't enough tore look for me. Okay. And let's see, I want it wider. I'll just have, I think I want it a little wider than that, so. Alright. I really love these collaged papers. Those are just right up my alley. Okay. So I'm going to grab my distress ink here, and I'm just actually going to just do it on this bag. It's not going to hurt that bag to have a little more. And I'm not going to worry about cutting these sides down that you can see. I'll just, because they're going to be sitting in the pocket anyway. Nobody's going to see that. Just don't want those light edges showing. Okay, so, and I may even give it a little crumple. I may give it a little bit of crumple and give it a little bit of grunge. Okay. Alright, so now I'm kind of ready. I'm just going to have it go on the page like so. And that will just be a little something to keep that bag from, you know, from showing. There'll be something kind of attached to it for that inside cover. And I'm not going to get real deep with the glue because I kind of just want it to look like it's a little frail and maybe not all held together good. So I'm just going to kind of swing some glue on it here and there. I'm not going to get real worried about it being all over the page there. So there we go. There'll be kind of a little bit of cover there to it, and you can always rough up these little pieces that are kind of hanging. Don't worry about them being too. Okay. Alright, so there will be the inside cover to that. Now I'm going to go ahead and decorate my cover here. So I can tell I need to, I'm not going to worry about cutting this, but I will be tearing this. Let's see, it looks like I'll just need to tear it a little above the, okay, and I know that I'm going to be tearing this off a little bit. I don't want to tear my image up too much though. Be very careful. Let's see, and then I probably want it the width. Maybe about there. Okay. So kind of slip it in the pocket. Yeah, I think I like that there. That's going to look nice. I'm going to rip that off a little there. And I will be inking around those edges. My glue tipped over and it's a wanting to leak out. I didn't realize it. I'll clean up that mess. Okay. So I'm going to be inking around my edges here. Just don't want anything looking pale. Not too worried about the bottom. It's not going to show anyway. Just mainly the parts that are showing. Okay, and I can grunge this up a little bit probably. Okay. Alright. Go ahead and get that stuck down. And just like before, there isn't any part of this that I'm just going to be real particular about it being completely stuck down. Because the idea is to just be messy and grungy. So, okay, so we'll get that tucked in there. Kind of get it where I want it. Pull that up a hair. Okay. I'm going to put a little something right here on the bag. It just needs to be a little darker. I may go... I may get it over in here. Since I do have two of these printed out. That edge off. Yeah, I think that will be a little bit better. A little bit better there. Or do I want it to go here? Oh, I may want that. I think that's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just rip that off. I know, you wouldn't think there'd be that many decisions to trying to get your cover made, but for me, it just is. It's always a thinking about it. Okay, so we'll grunge this up. And go ahead and get that stuck down a little. Alright. Okay, so I like that much better. Alright. And then all I'll have to do is figure out what I'm going to put there. And I will try to use, just since this is the back, just use one of these little scraps here for that. Is what I'll do. Yeah. And I'll probably crumple it up a little bit. Give it a little crumple. Give it a little grunge. And I want the sides to get a little tore because I don't want them to look quite so, so perfect there, you know, cut. I'm going to just kind of rip it a little bit. You know, maybe take a little hunk out of it. That kind of things. Just so that they are not looking like I've cut it straight. Put a little grunge on the folds there. Okay, so I like that. I like the way that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little glue put down. Alright. And then my cover will be mainly done unless I stick a little, you know, a little something there on the, with that pulled up a little. Okay. Yeah, and I think that looks fine. Got a little rolled there. Get that a little rolled. And I'll put a little glue there to even kind of hold that roll a little bit. Alright, so really liking that really well. Alright, so the